Welcome to the Quantum Lens podcast. I'm your host, Oksana Hansen. This is a space where science meets soul, a heart-centered, conscientious podcast designed to nurture your spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being through the wisdom of quantum biology, holistic healing, and a deep self-discovery. We'll explore what it truly means to live in alignment. If you're ready to open your heart, expand your mind, you're in the right place. Good morning and welcome back to the Quantum Lens podcast. And I'm so excited to have Dr. Mike Belkowski. I hope I pronounced that right. Or also known as Dr. Mitochondria?
Dr. Mitochondria. That's what one of my customers called me. I think it's a pretty affectionate nickname.
I love it. And how convenient. Mike, you are the CEO and founder of BioLite. And I am so excited to have this conversation about red light therapy and methylene blue with you today. Thanks for being on the show.
Oksana, thanks for having me on. I just had a big protein breakfast, which was preceded by some kefir and some kimchi, so I'm ready to go. And all of that was thanks to your information and your education, so I'm happy to return the favor here.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I'd love to hear your origin story because you kind of came by this through the medical, regular medical route and kind of then made a switch to this world. So I'd love to hear how you got into this.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story in the sense I didn't have this health journey I think a lot of people have where they're trying to solve something, they learn or they find this new technique or modality or compound or what have you, and it saves them or it heals them, so they want to share it with everyone else. My story is a little different in the sense that, to your point, I graduated as a physical therapist with a doctorate in 2016 with zero intentions of starting any businesses or companies. I thought I was going to be a PT, maybe work a couple of years locally in Missoula, Montana. And then I really wanted to travel abroad and work as a physiotherapist, in Switzerland or Australia, gain some fun experience there, bring it back to the States, and then just continue my physical therapist career that way. But within a couple of months of my first job at a local outpatient clinic, orthopedic outpatient clinic, I quickly became disgruntled with the system, if you will. For me, it was particularly the way, and this isn't just specific to physical therapists, I think this occurs in a lot of other medical professions too, but the insurances largely dictate how you treat. Meaning, if I have a patient and I want to treat with X and Y because I know that'll get them better quicker, but I'm being told, no, treat with A and B because we'll get paid or reimbursed more, even though A and B I know or I don't think is going to get my patient better as well as X and Y. So anyway, our hand is forced because of money. And so that didn't sit well with me for many reasons. And so I'm like, okay, I was doing some digging and came across this thing called cash-based practices, specifically cash-based PT practices, which back in 2016 was a very, very new and novel thing. But I was like, well, okay, I'm going to start my own cash-based practice because that means by not taking insurances, I can treat how I want to under my scope of practice, and thus I'm not handcuffed by the insurance companies. So within a couple of months of that job, and again, this is about 6 months after graduating from PT school, I decided to set off on my own and start a solo practice. So Missoula, Montana, that's where the physical therapy program is in Montana. It's a very, very PT clinic dense city, one of the most dense cities in the country. So I knew I had to set myself apart from these other clinics, not just for the sake of being different, but of course offering efficacious treatments. So that started my journey into finding holistic or alternative treatments for patients. So quickly I became, I don't know what drew this to me other than I thought poking people with needles was cool or interesting, but I got certified in dry needling, took the foundational course, and then a year later took the advanced course. And during the advanced course, I picked up cupping. So I integrated cupping. Not long after that, I got into hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So I offered that to my patients. I think I was the first practitioner, not just physical therapist, in Montana to become certified in blood flow restriction training. That was back in early 2017. And then that eventually, so this is happening over the course of years and years. So around the end of 2018, I come across a book on Amazon about red light therapy, the one by Ari Whitten, The Ultimate Guide to Red Light Therapy. And I'd heard about red light therapy for years because I was a devout listener to the Ben Greenfield podcast. And either during his ads or like even on some of his interviews, he's talking about this red light, how it can heal you. And at that point in my life, I had zero respect for the impact of light on your health. So I'm thinking, red light is going to improve. Are you kidding me? You're saying a stoplight could improve my health somehow? So I just wasn't buying it back then. But this book had so many reviews and it was basically 5 stars. I'm like, okay, I got to at least read about it because I love reading books and I just love learning. So got the book, and the first quarter or third of the book is about the mechanisms of how red light therapy works. And just to back up a moment, what I really hung my hat on as a physical therapist with my cash-based practice was dry needling. I would dry needle for hours and hours a day. And that's why really most people came to see me was for dry needling, because if done properly, it can really reduce or completely resolve virtually all types of pains. So when it works that well, people are going to come see you. And the the reason why dry needling is so impactful is because it virtually instantaneously reduces inflammation and improves circulation. So by reducing inflammation, that reduces the sensitivity of your nerves to send a pain signal to your brain. Meaning, if you're inflamed, it could just be a local area like you rolled your ankle, or it could be a systemic issue like fibromyalgia. But if you are inflamed, your nerves take a lower threshold. There's a lower threshold to cause a pain signal to be sent to your brain. So whereas before you had to be punched in your shoulder for a pain signal to be sent to your brain, if you're really inflamed, it could just be the feeling of your shirt against your skin. That's enough to send pain to your brain. So reducing inflammation to improve symptoms of pain is massive, or like that should be one of the main modes of how you reduce pain in whatever modality or supplement or whatever you're doing to reduce pain should be. And we'll get to how that relates to red light therapy in Methylene Blue here in a moment. But so that's how dry needling works. Back to this red light therapy book. A couple of the main mechanisms of how red light therapy works was reducing inflammation, improving circulation. So with my background in dry needling and my virtually thousands of hours of experience in seeing the impact of dry needling and how that reduces pain, I immediately had a connection with red light therapy based on those mechanisms. And then the cherry on top, which we'll get into, I'm sure, a little more here, is how red light therapy improves mitochondrial health and mitochondrial function. And thus, my journey into mitochondrial health for overall health and longevity began. Because again, up to that point, I just knew the boilerplate stuff that everyone knows, that the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cells, which is true, but that's like 1% of the story. So when I read that book, so that was the first third of the book. Then the second 2/3 of that book is like all the research on how red light therapy can improve your skin health and improve your sleep and reduce pain and improve fertility and improve athletic performance, like everything, but backed by research. So I'm like, whoa, there's a lot here, like a lot of legitimacy. So that was late 2018, kind of looked to see what the market had to offer from a red light therapy perspective. It seemed like there was a massive void where there's really cheap products or really expensive products. In retrospectively looking back on it, kind of a dearth of quality education in the red light therapy space. So I thought if someone could come in and offer a high quality red light therapy device or devices at a more affordable price, and more importantly for me, my passion is education. So bringing education to the space, I thought that could be a place for me to come in and kind of stir the pot, I suppose. So early 2019, I started BioLite really as a hobby because I was still trying to grow my PT practice at that time. But long story long, that's how I got into red light therapy.
So I have a couple questions for you. Could you talk about the standard of care, right? Like the requirements as when you were talking about when you first got out of school and you were working and had these standard of care. So you knew better that you could get these patients healed faster, but yet you had to follow these protocols because they got paid more. Is that true? Because I always talk about, like, for instance, if you go and get your blood work done and the doctor says you have high cholesterol, they have to, as a standard of care, issue you a statin. And if they don't, then they're practicing outside the standard of care.
So are you asking, like, was what I was experiencing standard of procedure, so to speak? And I think insurances, I mean, that changes from state to state too. So I think it's a little different everywhere you go, like where they'll reimburse more for therapeutic exercise or therapeutic activity more so than like at that time, I don't think you got reimbursed at all for dry needling or at all for other treatment options, but they just weren't reimbursed by insurances. And there's probably a reason why. Also, and this was specific to where I worked, the owner of the clinic loved foot traffic. Whereas I'm coming out of PT school and I'm like really excited to get people better as quickly as possible, where I was basically indirectly told, we need to keep these patients around for a little while, like find a reason to keep them coming back, to the point that we were treating what was his sport? He was at the University of Montana. Was he a baseball player or a football player? I don't remember. But like he was already better. Like we already got him recovered from what he initially came in for. So she decided we should work on your golf swing. So he came in for weeks and weeks so we could improve his golf swing, which was just like another way of saying, like, let's keep you coming in so like we can keep getting paid. Like I understand the business side, but that was just like one example of, and I was almost reprimanded initially when I was getting patients better and I got basically slapped on the hand for discharging them, if you will. So there was just like multiple things that added up where like from a moral integrity, it just didn't sit well with me. So I could have just gone to a different clinic and experienced something different from a clinic manager perspective, but the whole insurance dictating the reimbursement schedule, and I'm sure that would certainly affect how the clinic manager told us how to treat. I think that was somewhat inevitable, and I'm just the type of person, by and large, I don't like being told what to do. I like to be an independent thinker and kind of do what I feel is best in life, but especially when I'm treating patients. So I just made a quick decision, pretty radical decision that early in my PT career, just to leave that job and start on my own.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we've talked about this, but my daughter just had surgery at the beginning of the year. She broke her elbow on the growth plate and had to have surgery and now is doing PT. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about that after this.
Sure. I'll see if I can help.
Because I am a huge proponent of healthcare advocacy, right? Somebody who looks at whatever it is you're dealing with from a perspective like once removed, right? Without kind of the emotional side of things and whatever. And I'm always a healthcare advocate for my children. And even when it comes to working with our regular medical system, which I am so thankful is there, right? She needed the surgery. Her bone's now completely healed. We're trying to work on her range of motion, getting her range of motion back. But I don't just follow the guidance of what they're saying. Like I'm doing my own research and we're doing things our own way. What we think is also the best for her, not only like physical well-being, but also her emotional well-being as she's trying to go through this process, right? Too. So I'm always an advocate for having, someone help guide you like in your journey and not just taking whatever the doctors are saying at its face value. But
well, especially in this day and age with AI, like information has never been more readily available. You can't always trust AI, but like the amount of information you're able to pull at your fingertips is unparalleled. So there's no reason not to do your own due diligence for, like you're talking about, you're hearing what the doctor or whomever is saying, but it takes 10 or 15 seconds to type something in a chat GPT to kind of clarify or see if there's alternative or what have you. So it's a crazy world we're living in, crazy exciting and kind of crazy scary at the same time.
Well, and I think too, it's very fear-based, right? So he's telling us, at a year mark is going to be the full range of motion that she will ever get back. And so it's like, now we need to double and triple what you're doing because, right? Like there's nothing you can do at home. You have to keep coming in. And I'm like, we're at our lake house. Like we're not driving 2.5 hours back a couple times a week to do PT. So we're just kind of following our own intuition and guidance and things that we can do at home to help as well. But I love that you brought up dry needling. I think no one's talked to me about this, and I think this is just such a fascinating thing. And if we can go into talking about that a little bit more. What I want to preface this conversation with is I have a brother who is in the military and, has suffered from PTSD and things like that. And he has recently been working with someone who does dry needling, and it has helped him immensely. And I have never even heard of this before. And now it's been something that my brother has been working on. And then you brought it up. And I just think this is so fascinating. So how did you come across dry needling? What was it about it that attracted you to it?
So we learned virtually nothing about it in PT school. This is something you kind of seek postgraduate. I mean, we talked about it. It was more of like a philosophical debate about should PTs be able to dry needle versus acupuncturists. And there's always that debate. And that's why in some states, actually, you can't dry needle is because of acupuncturists kind of trying to protect their territory more or less. Because
What's the difference?
Treatment, philosophy, and method, meaning acupuncturists are treating meridians more, or like, I'm not going to try to put words in their mouth, but they're treating the meridians. They don't put the needle nearly as deeply as we do with dry needling. And so they're treating, again, like energy paths, trying to normalize energy flow. Whereas with dry needling, and there's different courses or thought processes even within dry needling. So I feel fortunate that I took the course and method that I did, because there's some methods where you're literally just hunting for what are called trigger points, like little tight ropey knots in your muscles. And then you just directly dry needle those knots and all is well. And there is some credence to that, but it's not nearly as comprehensive as treating the nervous system, which is how I was taught, which is a much more comprehensive, well-rounded way of dry needling. So you walk into me, you tell me where your pain is, whatever location it is. Oh, my shoulder's hurting, or oh, I have a crick in my neck. And I'm already thinking neurologically, what nerves are innervating that area above and below? And that's where my needles are going to go, certain points within that nerve path based on the pain you're telling me. And with dry needling, a lot of times you're going to the bone, meaning as deep as possible. You, the patient, you're not going to feel the needle hit your bone necessarily. And there's no nerves on your bone, so that's why you can't feel it. It just sounds kind of weird, I suppose. But anyway, so the goal is to get the needle as close to that nerve spot as possible without touching the nerve, going as deep as possible. We may leave the needle in for seconds, maybe 30 to 60 seconds. We may do like some pistoning movements for certain reasons. We may do some twisting movements with the needles. We'll hook up a couple of needles to electricity. Whereas acupuncture, the needles are very superficial. They're not going much deeper than the skin surface by and large. So again, the treatment, thought process, and just the mechanics of the treatment are vastly different. And that's not to say one is better than the other. Like the more I read and learn about traditional Chinese medicine and talking to people like Dr. Chris Molley and what he's doing with acupuncture, like it's not one's better than the other. It's like the debate of, hey, Mike, what should I do? Should I do red light therapy or infrared sauna? They're completely different. They have their own benefits. It's like comparing apples and oranges. In a perfect world, I'd be doing both on a consistent basis, whether that's red light therapy, infrared sauna, or dry needling and acupuncture. Like you could use either as maintenance for your body, quite honestly. So,
you know what I use acupuncture for? Like it's a natural form of like Botox, to relax the muscles in your face. Like that is something I love using acupuncture for that most people don't know that you could use. So,
yep. Also, when they were teaching us the cupping in that advanced dry needling course, the guy that designed this course, his name was Dr. Moss. The courses I took were Dr. Moss, integrative dry needling. And Dr. Ma came from China, where he learned about acupuncture for decades, and then he created his own philosophy, brought it to the United States, where he developed his dry needling. So he kind of synthesized a little bit of acupuncture into the dry needling thought process, which is why I think he's treating the nervous system. Like if you put the nervous system over the meridians, they virtually parallel each other. So I think he kind of integrates some acupuncture concepts into his dry needling concept. But regardless, he was like in his 80s, Asian, and he and his wife would cup each other's face, I believe, daily. And if you look at his picture on the back of his textbook, Dr. Ma, his face is pristinely smooth. And when they were talking about the mechanisms of like how does cupping work, it improves circulation, you're decreasing any adhesed tissues, which would cause some wrinkles or what have you. It hydrates the skin. Hydration at a deep level is one of the reasons skin ages. So cupping resolves a lot of issues on the face, or for the skin particularly. The only backdraw to cupping your face is that, especially when you begin that process, if you've ever cupped for the first time, you know what that cupping mark looks like. It looks like a dark, dark bruise, even though it's not a bruise. So the first time you cup your face, depending on how intensely you do it, you may come out with some of these darker marks. But the more you cup it, the more consistently you cup it, you'll be able to cup as intensely without those dark colors. And on the back side of that, as you continue to cup, you're just going to have healthier and healthier skin perpetually. So you just have to get over that hump of the dark skin first.
So we're talking about all my beauty secrets. I get complimented on my skin all the time. So acupuncture, that's one of the things that I use. And I actually cup my face every morning. I don't use like an actual like glass cup. It's like a silicone,
like a small one.
That's a small one that you kind of you put oil on your face and you kind of suction it in and you kind of glide it around your face. So that is absolutely something that I use. So a little beauty secret there.
I think it really is. And like, I'm talking on like the far end of extreme, like using the cups and like sucking up your face. But what you're using, clearly it's working. And again, it's all about consistency, but there's no other way that we can distract the tissues from one another. Like think about all the things we do on our body or for tissues. The massage, we're pushing down, like gua sha tools or Graston, those metal tools that PTs and chiros use. You're pushing down on the tissue, whereas cupping, you're actually distracting the tissue. And as we age and as we become dehydrated systemically, tissues adhere to themselves and become sticky. That's why wrinkles form. That's why we lose range of motion. I mean, just think about a scar when it builds up. Like that's the extreme of adhesed tissue. And that's one of the best use cases for cupping is scar tissue. But by distracting the tissue, especially on a consistent basis, again, you're providing that blood flow, you're providing oxygen to the tissue, you're providing hydration to the skin. So again, to your point, it doesn't have to be the extreme I'm talking about. It can be a very simple silicone tool like you're using.
Yeah. And so would dry needling then help scar tissue?
Yeah, because you could put the needle literally into the scar tissue, depending on how big it is or how intense it is. And that's where you would start to spin it, because as you twist the needle, you're wrapping that scar tissue around the needle. So like it doesn't feel good initially, but that's how you kind of break up some of that adhesed tissue with the needles. You twist, and then you let it sit, and the needle will eventually unravel itself, but the scar tissue will be stretched because of that. And if the scar is big enough or long enough, you can put 2 needles in and then twist opposite directions. And again, you're putting this like stretch mechanism on the scar, but it really breaks it up. So just like if you have like plantar fasciitis or something of that nature, and you cup the bottom of your foot, it is painful as AF, if you will. But the more you cup it, like on a daily basis or a weekly basis, you're going to get to the point, again, kind of like the face I was talking about, but you're going to be able to cup the bottom of your foot as intensely, and it's going to be pain-free. So again, it speaks to the importance or the ability to keep your connective tissue pliable. I mean, why do you think yoga is so popular and that it works so well? It's a longer game form of keeping your connective tissue pliable. But when you become restricted, whether it's dehydration or trauma, because even just blunt trauma, maybe your dog runs into your thigh or something, I don't know, like you just take a blunt trauma to your thigh or to your quad, that alone is enough to cause the connective tissue or the fascia in that spot where you took the trauma to adhese and to become sticky. And then if you don't address it, like if you don't stretch it, if you don't massage it, if you don't cup it, it becomes adhesed, you lose range of motion. And that's how we kind of develop compensations in one way.
So I'll give you an example of this. This is a freak accident that happened to me last year at my lake house. I was covering up my jet ski and I slipped on the jet ski lift. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen a jet ski lift. It has these wheels, right? Like, so when you're pulling the jet ski up onto the lift, it has a couple wheels that kind of help it slide. Well, our lift has the wheels, but they also have other slots for different size jet skis. And as I fell into the water, my foot somehow perfectly slipped into this tiny little hole where one of the wheels is supposed to be. And I didn't have a life jacket on, and my leg was stuck in this little hole. My foot was all the way through it. And I have this knot still to this day. I've tried cupping it. I've tried a bunch of different things, but I cannot get this. This knot is like the size of a baseball that's on my, like right above my ankle, and I cannot get rid of it. I don't even know what to do. I've tried
Is it a muscular knot?
It's right on the bone. So what was weird
is it a calcification of sorts or not necessarily?
It might be. I went to the orthopedic surgeon. I saw my chiropractor. I saw a bunch of different people, and nobody knows what it is or how to get rid of it. And my massage therapist has been working on it. We've been trying cupping. Those are kind of the things I've tried so far. But besides that, like, I don't even know how to get rid of it. But I mean, my leg was stuck in that hole. And so what happened when my husband was, thankfully he was down there with me, he was able to yank my foot out of that hole. And you can kind of see the indentation all the way to the bone, because it's like right on a part where there's not like a lot of meat.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a weird accident with like some kind of trauma that my body's doing something to protect itself, you know.
But it's not swelling.
Mm-mm.
It's something harder.
Yep. It's like a hard, feels like a hard knot or something.
Red light therapy? I don't know. Dry needling? I don't know how much that would help. Like, that's the thing. That's an interesting one. I'd have to see it in person too. You should have showed me in Austin.
I know. I'll see a few weeks at Return to Nature.
Exactly.
So.
I'll bring some needles.
Yeah. I was wondering, I'm like, I wonder if the dry needling, if that would help break it up.
We can find out.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, thank you for bringing that up. That's such a cool conversation. So I'm glad you mentioned the cupping and the dry needling. But I think one thing I really want to share with my audience is your Methylene Blue product. And I'm just going to tell a quick story. As Methylene Blue, you know, I was taught is an energy medicine, and it either resonates with you or it doesn't. And every Methylene Blue that I'd ever tried, I did not like. It didn't resonate with me at all. And when you and I met and you said you have this Methylene Blue and you also have it in a capsule form, and I was so excited to try it because I hated my lips always being blue. And when the people know, they're like, oh, I could see like you have the methylene, you know, lips. But when people don't know, they're kind of like, what is that? So I love your product because I always travel with it. The energy of it totally resonates with me and my body. My husband and I use it every single day. And then you have this calm version of your Methylene Blue that you can also use at night. And I've never seen anybody have that product either. And so how did you get into the Methylene Blue? I know you started your red light company, but then you decided to create a Methylene Blue product. So how did you decide to get into that business?
Yeah, so it was, to your point, BioLite was red light therapy centric when I started it. And it was that way for several years, but inevitably I just like to learn more and more and more. Whether it's like in my scope or outside my scope, I like to equally learn about both. And again, red light therapy started me down this mitochondrial journey, I guess becoming a mitochondriac, as we're called, where the thought process is, in a nutshell, since the mitochondria, from a bioenergetic perspective, the more energy you produce per cell, the healthier you're going to be. Said another way, the less energy you produce per cell, the less healthy or the closer to disease you are going to be. And the mitochondria produce 98% or more of all of the physiological energy in our body, ATP, but equally importantly, maybe more importantly, which is rarely if never talked about, is that a byproduct of producing ATP is also producing biological water, i.e. exclusion zone water, or the fourth phase water if we want to get into Dr. Gerald Pollack's topic there. But back to the mitochondria. So if we believe or understand the bioenergetics and how that really dictates vitality versus disease, in that the mitochondria dictate that bioenergetic equation, then it would behoove a person, if they believe that, to do anything and everything to improve their mitochondrial function. And why the mitochondria at a very basic level? Well, the mitochondria are in every single cell in our body outside of our red blood cells. And the more energy dependent that tissue or organ is, the more mitochondrial dense it's going to be. For example, your brain is by far the most mitochondrial dense tissue in your body because it demands so much energy. And that's a blessing and a curse, because when you start getting exposed to environmental toxins or psychological, physical stress in your body, the brain is one of the first things to get hurt by, let's say, non-native EMFs or toxins in your food or air quality or water quality, what have you. But the blessing is, if you can get proper compounds or light or certain things to the brain, you can rectify that issue pretty darn quickly. I mean, your body's very resilient. Your mitochondria are very resilient. They want to thrive. So to bring this full circle, why is methylene blue, or why are things like red light therapy so powerful? How can they affect so many things? Because they really do start to sound like a snake oil pitch after a while. Like red light therapy can help with almost everything. Same thing with methylene blue. But when you understand that the mitochondria is really at the root level of the vast majority of modern diseases, now it makes sense how they can affect so many different organs and tissues and pathologies. So with methylene blue, when you consume it, whether it's orally or IV, the methylene blue is going to go to where there is the most mitochondrial dysfunction in your body, which would be precancerous and cancerous cells. So wherever those are in your body, the methylene blue will find it, and then the vast majority will make it into your central nervous system, i.e. your brain, along with other nerves, but your brain particularly. So that's why you see all of these cognitive, whether it's like a nootropic effect of increased energy and focus and motivation, improved mood, decreased stress and anxiety and depression, and of course, mitigating, preventing, and even sometimes reversing signs and symptoms of neurodegeneration. So you hear all of that and it sounds amazing, but then you hear that it's a synthetic dye. So that's why it's such a polarizing compound, is that especially in like the mitochondrial or biohacking space, we're trying to improve our health, yet we're being proposed to put this synthetic dye in our body. So I think some people are kind of on the fence, or you're either really hardcore against putting something synthetic in your body, or you're open to the research and to the information that, hey, this enigmatic molecule or compound is very beneficial for your mitochondria. And if you understand the importance of your mitochondria, then it's kind of easier to get on board with that. So, I mean, I could go down a lot of different rabbit holes, but I'll let you ask kind of some questions from there, Oksana.
Yeah, and I think what we were taught in the Institute of Quantum Biology is that it was the very first pharmaceutical ever developed.
Well, I mean, yes, that is correct. But also, of course, it was developed in the late 1800s, like 1880 something. It was developed as a dye for like jeans and for leathers.
Yes.
It eventually became a pharmaceutical drug, or the first pharmaceutical drug in U.S. history, but it was developed as a dye for like leathers and textiles. So it's a very interesting history in that sense. I don't know who decided
to swallow it.
Well, yeah, but like the reason it got into the medical space is because in the late 1800s, they used it to treat malaria. Like, people took methylene blue, within 48 hours, the malaria was gone. Again, I don't know who decided to do that. But like the stepwise progression was developed as a synthetic dye for textiles, used in microscopy for staining slides. And so they were staining slides with this blue dye because it was a nice contrast when you look under a microscope. And they noticed that there was this bacteria that was really soaking up this blue. Like, it was a dark, dark blue, these bacteria and organelles. Well, it turns out those organelles were mitochondria. So now it makes sense why so much of the methylene blue makes it up to your brain, because the mitochondria are just soaking it up. Yeah, it's very...
So what's your opinion on this whole like blue brain thing that's out there?
Well, to be blunt, I say, who cares? Or like, why do you care? Like, the only people that are ever going to see your brain is like a mortician or a brain surgeon. So it's analogous, Oksana, I guess, to be a little more politically correcter. People that eat a lot of turmeric or curcumin, your organs are turning yellowish orange because, I mean, turmeric's its own dye, right? Like, we use turmeric for food coloring in like natural foods. So it's no different than that. It's just a very interesting color to think about your brain or your internal organs being. So that's why I say, who cares? Like, no one's going to see it. And it really doesn't dictate or alter what it's doing or why it's beneficial. It's just it's an aesthetic thing that no one's going to see, I suppose.
Right. And what I like about it is there's so much research on this, and especially around methylene blue and red light. Yeah.
And I guess that would have been the shorter answer to your question of why did I get into methylene blue? Part of it was the mitochondrial journey, but it was like, okay, here's this amazing mitochondrial compound that has a beautiful synergistic relationship with red light therapy. So it was a combination of those two things. But of course, seeing that I was centric in red light therapy, and there's this molecule that could enhance your session or again, have a synergistic response from a mitochondrial perspective, it was just a no-brainer for me. And so then the biggest thing that you have to be concerned with, because it's a synthetic compound, is the quality of it. There is different thresholds or different qualities of methylene blue. Some that's used for like the sewage system, some that's used for aquarium cleaners, and then some that is intended for human consumption, which has to be pharmaceutical grade. The caveat to that is, just like in the red light therapy space, or really just like in the biohacking space, it's not regulated. Anyone can say anything they want about anything. And that's a whole other tangent we could get into with red light therapy products, but specific to methylene blue, at least from what I've seen, there's more and more of these red light therapy products popping up. Everyone says that they're pharmaceutical grade, yet no one is providing transparency and proof that it's pharmaceutical grade. Because again, anyone can put the text on their product page and say that it's pharmaceutical grade, but it doesn't make it so. And I know it's the easy and convenient thing. And this is what I did too initially, Oksana, is I heard about methylene blue. I got excited about it. I went to Amazon where there are cheap options. And it's been verified because I've had customers show me, because they've gotten the certificate of analysis from these companies, which they don't readily provide on the product page. And then we compared it to ours. And for example, like the mercury and the lead levels were 5 to 10 times higher than what was in ours, but both are being proposed or purported as pharmaceutical grade. So again, if you're going to get into this space, the methylene blue space, just do your due diligence and make sure you are legitimately getting a pharmaceutical grade so that you're not just loading your body with heavy metals and other impurities, because that's analogous to taking 2 steps forward, 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 steps back, depending on what the heavy metal content is. So just do your due diligence and be careful.
Well, and I wonder if that was the case with the previous ones that I've tried. It was like my body knew energetically that something about it wasn't right and it didn't make me feel good. So I know from testing things on myself, because I would never recommend somebody to use something unless I'm testing it myself. This methylene blue product is outstanding. I love the fact that you have it in the pill form, but you also have it in the liquid form too. My husband loves the liquid. I love the pills. So it's just a preference, I guess. But you also have this Leuco Methylene Blue, which we had just talked about and I recently tried, and it's more bioavailable, right?
Yeah, so the thought process is when you consume methylene blue in whatever form it is, as long as you're consuming it orally, because if you do IV, it's in your body, it's in the bloodstream, and it does what it does. But if you consume it orally, the methylene blue, eventually it gets processed and reduced in your liver into leucomethylene blue, and that's what's ultimately utilized by the cells and by the mitochondria. And while you do get some initially, the breakdown happens over the course of the subsequent hours after you consume it. So by taking leucomethylene blue in the first place, it would be instantly bioavailable because it doesn't have to go through that breakdown process in the liver. Excuse me. And then from a chemical perspective, since it's a reduced form of methylene blue, anything that's reduced chemically has more electrons. Thus, leucomethylene blue would have a higher antioxidant capacity. And then thirdly, as far as a pro of leucomethylene blue, again, chemically, since it's reduced, that means it's been further removed of any impurities and heavy metals and stuff like that. So it's even a cleaner form of methylene blue, even if that methylene blue is legitimately pharmaceutical grade. It's just chemically you're further removing that type of stuff. So leucomethylene blue would essentially, in theory, give you bigger and better results faster. I call it like a supercharged version of methylene blue, which begs the question, why wouldn't you always just choose leucomethylene blue? And that's because it's literally twice as expensive to source compared to methylene blue. So for example, our liquid methylene blue recipe, which includes NMN, colloidal gold, colloidal silver, fulvic acid, all of our liquids do, that base BioBlue product is $89, whereas the base BioBlue Leuco product is $169, and it's literally just because of the price difference of the methylene blue versus the leucomethylene blue. Otherwise, the leucomethylene blue would certainly be the choice. That's what I use personally.
Yeah, my husband used it this morning because I was like, I'm talking to Mike today. You got to, and he goes, oh man, this is like a lighter color. And I was like, yeah, because it's going to go right into it's already going to be bioavailable. And so that was pretty cool.
It's more of like a teal color, and it's less viscous, I noticed. I haven't looked into the reason why, but I do notice compared to methylene blue, the viscosity, it's a thinner water product, if you will, the leucomethylene blue. So for whatever properties that has or the reason why, that's just another that's a tangible differentiating factor I can see between the two different products. And then we also offer a third product of the liquid version where it's a combination of, it's a 50-50 blend of methylene blue and leucomethylene blue. It's called BioBlue SR for sustained release, with the theory being you're getting the benefits of the leuco, the instant benefits of the leucomethylene blue, and then the delayed breakdown effects of the methylene blue. So you get the best of both worlds in that sense.
So if you were trying to take methylene blue and do red light right away, the Leuco would be the one to take.
So the research that's been done on the photodynamic capacity of methylene blue has been specifically for methylene blue. I haven't seen any showcasing the photodynamic capacity of leucomethylene blue and red light therapy. That's not to say it's not there, but I always tell people if you're most interested in combining the two, I would use methylene blue, or if you want the benefits of both worlds, do the BioBlue SR. So then again, you're getting the higher antioxidant capacity, instant bioavailability of the Leuco, but you're getting the delayed and photodynamic capacity of the methylene blue. Because again, to your husband's point, the methylene blue is a very dark blue, which I think is part of what is attracting that red light or the red photons. So I think you may get a diminished or a lesser experience or photodynamic capacity with leucomethylene blue. But again, that's just theoretical. I don't know. But that would be my suggestion if you're really excited about methylene blue plus red light therapy, at least get some methylene blue in there.
Yep. And so who should not use methylene blue?
technically speaking, the contraindications are SSRIs because you don't want to run into this serotonin syndrome situation, which off the record is over embellished and is kind of a half truth, if you will, meaning the reason why that's a contraindication is it really stems from like 4 or 5 isolated incidences where surgeons, I think they're specifically doing parathyroid surgeries, were dumping methylene blue into the surgical sites, which is not abnormal for surgical situations. I mean, neurosurgeons use it for the brain all the time, so that's not abnormal, but these patients happen to be on SSRIs and they happen to have fatal events. So then it was stated that methylene blue should not be combined with SSRIs. So if we consider that situation and they're dumping, let's say, even half a bottle's worth of methylene blue into the surgical site, I'm trying to work out in my head what that would be.
A lot.
I mean, it would be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I mean, it would be at least 300 to 400. The point being, it's at least hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of milligrams of methylene blue, whereas the typical dosage that you and I are talking about that we're taking for mitochondrial support is like 10 to 15 milligrams per dosage. And
Right.
I had a gentleman on my podcast like a month ago. He owns a red light therapy clinic up in Canada, possibly the biggest red light therapy clinic in the world. And he readily uses methylene blue with his patients. And he's seen over 10,000 patients, most of them on methylene blue, all of them on, or not all of them, but a lot of them on different types of drugs, including SSRIs. And he has seen 0 negative consequences. I can say the exact same thing between my family, my friends, customers, everyone that I've referred to use methylene blue, including people on SSRIs or other type of drugs. There's been no negative interactions. Now, that doesn't mean to ignore this contraindication, but it's just to paint it with a more well-rounded perspective on why that is a contraindication, and that I believe personally it's kind of over-embellished. And I mean, I've even heard of people that were on SSRIs or other types of drugs that are able to wean off either mostly, if not completely, off of different prescription drugs in lieu of methylene blue. Again, this is not medical advice, but just to paint,
Right.
give some anecdotes and perspective on the potential benefits of methylene blue.
Yeah. And another thing that I do for my personal health is I donate blood every 2 months. And I do that for a couple of reasons, but, it creates this hermetic stress temporarily where your body needs to regenerate from. It's actually a really effective way to dump toxins. My body loves iron and I eat mostly carnivore. So I have this iron that gets built up. So, it helps people who probably have low iron in their blood, and it saves about 3 lives per donation. So if that message resonates with you, I encourage you to go
amazing.
donate blood. But the reason I bring it up is, what they clean blood with after you donate blood is methylene blue.
I didn't know that personally, but like it's in all ambulances, it's obviously in hospitals, because it's basically the first line of treatment for what's called methemoglobinemia for different types of poisoning. Methylene blue is one of the first lines of defense. And for methemoglobinemia, which is super low oxygen, it provides oxygenation to your body. And like you and I talked about in Austin, there was an anecdote I heard from a couple of guys at Health Optimization Summit the month and a half prior, where they took some of our BioBlue capsule samples. They went out that night, had some fun drinking and whatever, and they came back the next day and told me they had the most difficult time. Like they couldn't even get a buzz. And whereas they would typically have that hangover symptom with how much they drink, they woke up the next morning with nothing. And I've heard that off and on from a couple of other people too. But again, from this poisoning perspective, it makes sense that if you have methylene blue in your system, it could mitigate those types of symptoms from drinking.
Reactions. Yeah. That's so cool. And you actually told me to use methylene blue with molecular hydrogen.
Yeah, so I think, and I learned this anecdotally, or David Horonek, he's helped me develop both the cream and some of the methylene blue supplements. He started doing that just intuitively, and he thinks that molecular hydrogen would actually help better absorb the methylene blue, meaning you could probably take even less in molecular hydrogen to get a similar benefit, which has its pros as well. And then secondly, I heard from a different person. We were just on like a Zoom call, and she was telling me she noticed that when you drink or you take your methylene blue with molecular hydrogen, instead of your urine being blue, which it typically is with methylene blue, it becomes clear. And so I started trying that after she told me that, and I noticed the pattern too, that when I do consume, like, whether it's methylene blue or leukomethylene blue with molecular hydrogen, more times than not, it does lead to this clear urine versus blue. The mechanism or why that is, I don't know, but it is interesting nonetheless.
So it's a sign that your body is actually absorbing it, right? So if you take methylene blue, usually if your body isn't as absorbing it as much, your urine could be green, blue, all those colors. But if your body's actually using it up, then that would make sense that there's none of that color being retained when you pee, right?
I mean, if it's truly getting deeper into your tissues and organs, then maybe you're tapping into mitochondria that otherwise wouldn't be accessing that methylene blue. Also, like, there's just a redox reaction in your body where methylene blue can turn into leukomethylene blue, which is truly a clear color. But whenever it's exposed to oxygen, then it goes back to blue. And so there's this dance in your body where it can go in between either. It's like a redox reaction in a sense. So I would have to look it up, but I wonder if there's some type of chemical or chemistry reason why the hydrogen would then essentially turn your urine clear, but then when your urine is exposed to oxygen, it should turn slightly blue as well. So I don't know. It's just kind of
fascinating. Yeah.
It is fascinating to say the least.
Well, I want to respect your time today and just thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you, follow you? Tell us where people can find you.
Sure. So the company is just biolite.shop, and that's not only the handle for most of our socials, especially Instagram, but that's also our website, biolite.shop, not .com. And then personally, just find me on Instagram or virtually any other platform with my name, Dr. Mike Belkowski. Yeah, I think that's all, actually.
And you have a book as well?
Yeah, I have a couple of ebooks, one on red light therapy, and then I just released one on methylene blue, both of which I believe are decently comprehensive pieces of information, I think the red light therapy book's about 100 pages, the methylene blue one's about 80, but some pretty comprehensive information, just some history, again, mechanisms, research, and then some strategies for how to best utilize either the red light therapy and or the methylene blue. And then I'll eventually be coming out with an ebook on C60 as well, so hopefully within the next couple of months, that'll be out as well.
Awesome. Well, love to have you back on the show when you have that release to talk about that.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah. So I end every podcast with the same question. And so, Dr. Mike, what does love mean to you?
Love, this is a very interesting and it's a great question, Oksana. I think love comes in a lot of different shapes and forms, and it depends on who or what you are relating it to. So we have romantic relationships, of course, with our partners. We have relationships with our family. So like some familial, the term unconditional love would apply there. We have friendships and we love our friends. Hopefully we have self-love too. I think that might be the most important one, is to have compassion and love for yourself. So I think it comes in different forms to a certain extent, but I think at the end of the day, it's all energetic in one way, shape, or form, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your friends, family, your pets or animals. It could be for nature. It could be, I think it's this energeticness about us that is super foundational, as much as oxygen is, as much as producing ATP is. This concept of love, or this feeling, this energy of love, I think is what makes us human.
I love what you said about the most important is the form of self-love. And I came across this meme a while back, and it said, if someone asked you, what do you love the most in the world? How long would it take for you to list yourself? And that really hit me, because the first thing that came to me was obviously my kids and my spouse and my friends, my family. And I was like, whoa, self-love, duh.
It's true though,
So
right? Like
important.
we always want to put other people first, and it's tough to, or it feels selfish to put yourself before others. So I think that's also human nature by and large, is like you want to do so much for others and you'll put yourself so far down the line in lieu of helping or providing or giving love to others. So yeah, I think that's pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, and because sometimes we put other people first, we're not filling our bucket, right? So we got to fill our bucket so we can show up as the best version of ourselves in other aspects of our lives. So that's so cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you.
Of course, Oksana. Great to be here. I'm sure we'll have some more conversations. I'll have you back on my podcast too, and very much looking forward to the Return to Nature retreat in, 3-4 weeks? It's going to be amazing.
In 3 weeks. Yes. So excited, guys. Tickets are still available for sale until Wednesday, June 11th. So feel free to join us in person if you feel called. Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Quantum Lens podcast. I hope this episode brought you insight, inspiration, and a deeper connection to your journey. If you've loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's keep this conversation going. And until next time, keep aligning, expanding, and embrace the magic of who you are.